So this panel is one of what we call the rubber hitting the road type of panel. We've got a panel of not just local educators, but people involved integrally in education in the Northern Territory. So Haydee Dentith, the Deputy Regional Director, Arnhem, from the Department of Education, a former principal of both the Yirrkala schools, the Yirrkala school and the Yirrkala school itself. Haydee also grew up at Yirrkala as a child. Sabina Smith, who's just ducked out, who's the principal of the Nhulunbuy High School. Vanessa Hoare, who's the principal of the Nhulunbuy Primary School. Nathan Jura, a Wangari man, local Wangari man, has a terrific personal story, now working in transitional education. And Kate Axton, Northern Territory Young Indigenous Teacher of the Year and a Northern Territory Young Person of the Year. With them will stay Greg, who'll help moderate the session, but without further ado, Haydee. Please make her very welcome.
Thanks, Sean. So as Sean said, I'm Haydee Dentith, the Deputy Regional Director. Unfortunately, our Regional Director, Sue Bainan, has had to fly into Darwin, but she will be back tomorrow. So I'm here today to speak on behalf of the local government schools. Thank you. But I'd like to start by acknowledging the Gumatj clan and Galaroi Yunupingu and thank them for the privilege of being here at Gulkula and the opportunity to share our story. I'd also like to acknowledge the elders past, those that had the vision that set us on our journey, the elders future who are steering our lipa, our canoe, and the elders present, that is. The elders of the future are those that are paddling, the active participants in our journey, the ones that are listening and watching and learning and waiting for their time to step up. So it's a privilege to work with these groups. And as Sean said, I grew up here. I started my teaching journey here at Yirrkala Homeland, went on to be the principal of that school, the principal of Yirrkala School, and I'm now working the regional office supporting schools across Arnhem. So I do have a long history of education in this region. So I'd like to just share with you a bit of information about our local government schools in the Gove Peninsula. We have 4 schools, 2 based in Nhulunbuy, so Nhulunbuy Primary. Vanessa Hoare is the new principal there. The former principal, Sue Bainan, is now our regional director. We have Nhulunbuy High School, Sabina Smith, and we have 2 schools based at Yirrkala, the Yirrkala School, where the principal, Stuart Bramston, unfortunately couldn't be here because he's currently recruiting for the department, so doing a bit of a trip around Australia to find us some quality people. The principal in training there is Miriki Gunnabar Stubbs. Miriki is a qualified teacher who has been on a leadership journey for some time. She's a powerful woman, a strong educator. Miriki's been working for the last probably 6 months on the education fair that is currently happening with students from a number of schools. And so Miriki felt it was important that she was there to support that fair and to take a lead role. At Yirrkala Homeland schools, they have a base at Yirrkala, but they service homeland communities in this area. So Leon White is the current principal at Yirrkala Homelands and was actually the principal there when I started back in the mid-90s. So we're very privileged to have someone like Leon still in that role. Leon is also with Miriki at the Education Fair. He has a number of homeland teachers leading activities over at the fair. So I do encourage you to go over and have a look and introduce yourselves to the educators that are there today. So a quick snapshot. Nhulunbuy Primary, as I said, Vanessa's new to the role. She's looking after the school while we recruit for a more permanent principal. At the primary school, they've had a bit of change over the last few years. So many of you may have heard about the refinery shutting down and the impact that that has had on community population. What we've seen in our Nhulunbuy schools is that it's shifted the demographics of our schools. So we now have a higher percentage of Indigenous kids at Nhulunbuy Primary and Nhulunbuy High. That's meant a shift for the teachers. They're no longer teaching mainstream English-speaking students. They're catering for ESL kids from Indigenous communities. So they've brought in a number of initiatives there to support those students. They draw their students not just from Nhulunbuy, but also the surrounding communities. So students from Gulkula, from Yirrkala, come into Nhulunbuy Primary as well. That's their choice. So they have their ESL classes, so students that speak English as a second language, not just Indigenous students, but also migrant students, attend classes where they use direct instruction as their literacy approach. They have an annex out at Gulkula, so a community also known as Ski Beach. That annex services early childhood. So students that are too young to get on the bus to come into Nhulunbuy Primary can attend the annex out at Gulkula. Supported by the department, we've funded that with a full-time teacher and also an assistant teacher who is a local Indigenous person. So out at the annex they also do direct instruction, which was the wish of that community. At the annex this year, we have commenced a Families as First Teachers program. So this has been a highly successful program across CNT where we work with parents, both mothers and fathers, who have young children, so from 0 to 3, 0 to 4. And that is about working with the parents to get their children school ready, to talk about the sort of things they can be doing with their babies, with their young children, but also an opportunity to work to educate or train in areas identified by the community. So where the community has identified money management is an issue in our community, then they'll set up sessions with parents to help them learn about money management. If there's specific health issues in the community, they'll team up with the clinic and they'll run some education around health. It's a fantastic program, getting kids ready, getting families ready for that transition to school. So at Gulkula, we've started a new program out there that's doing really well. They also, as I mentioned, link in with key organisations like the clinic, but beyond the clinic. So they make sure they have partnerships with many different agencies and that we have a whole approach to the family support. Many of you probably know that there's a lot of people out there looking to help people in need, and if it's not coordinated, one family may be having half a dozen different agencies come to talk to them. This is an attempt to bring it together to help support that family. Nhulunbuy Primary also, as do all Arnhem schools, have a big focus on attendance and engagement and really pushing that kids need to be at school if they want to be successful. So the other school in Nhulunbuy is Nhulunbuy High, and after I finish speaking, Sabina is going to come up and talk about the initiatives there. There's some exciting stuff happening and some stuff coming up in the future that will mean big shifts for Nhulunbuy High. Yirrkala School. So I believe you heard from Beth Graham just before morning tea, and I was really sorry to miss that. Beth's an inspiration. Beth has a strong history with Yirrkala and the bilingual program there, and that program is still going strong. So at Yirrkala they have two principals. They have Stuart as the principal, and Miriki, who's identified a leadership pathway, is a principal in training, shadowing the principal, learning about school leadership and the whole job of a principal, because it changes all the time. Principals are as much managers as they are leaders, so there's a lot to learn. The Yirrkala School and Yirrkala Homeland schools are governed by one school council. The Yirrkala School Council works across both schools, sets a clear vision for both schools, supports the programs in both schools. It's one of the most powerful school councils in our region. We are privileged to have a lot of qualified educators in that council. Unfortunately, we've lost a number of key players, and you would have heard about these people, and you probably will hear more during Garma. people who have come through the system, who have been school principals, who have stayed on to provide cultural advice and support to our principals. So, it means as people pass away, we need to be building up the Yolngu educators that we have now and supporting them into leadership. So it's a very powerful school council with a very strong vision. Part of that vision is the commitment to bilingual education, a program where students are learning literacy in the early years in their first language, supported by Yolngu educators taking the lead in the classroom. At the same time, they're learning English. It's not forgotten. English is a feature of the programs from preschool. They learn to speak and they learn to listen in English. As they develop their literacy skills, they then translate this to English in middle primary. So it's a fantastic program, again, supported by the council, supported by the department, and run by Yolngu educators. In addition to bilingual literacy programs and approaches and team teaching, there's also a focus on Yolngu pedagogy, a Yolngu approach to teaching and learning. The school has opportunities for students, staff and community to come together to learn about key concepts in Yolngu culture that translate to key concepts in Western culture. They run workshops, which they call Gulkula workshops, which is a coming together to learn about this knowledge and build new knowledge. One of the most successful programs we have running, not just at Yirrkala but across 5 sites in Arnhem, is the Learning on Country program, taking the same philosophy of a Yolngu approach to teaching and learning, where students are learning about science, conservation, land management, on country, with the school and ranger groups working side by side, with Yolngu leaders leading the program, and students having that opportunity to tap into the knowledge they bring, not assuming that they're empty vessels that need to be filled with Western knowledge. Yolngu have so much knowledge about land, science, maths, and it's our job to tap into that and bring that to the fore and make the links back to traditional Western pathways or subjects. So the Learning On program, fantastic program. And again, I encourage you, when you have an opportunity, to visit the ranger shelter, and there'll be people there who can talk to you more about Learning On Country. It's not just about land management, conservation. The school also offers pathways into multimedia, the arts, authentic pathways that we know have been successful in the past. So that school will continue to offer these pathways. The Yirrkala Homeland School, which is the one that's most dear to my heart because it's where I've taught for a long time, as I said, covers multiple homelands. A feature of this school is that the Yolngu educators living in their homeland deliver the program 5 days a week. They're the core deliverer of education in their community. The educators are supported by qualified teachers. Qualified teachers come out 1, 2, 3 days a week. They mentor, they plan together, they co-deliver, they evaluate, they write reports together. It's a real team approach. So with the Yolngu educators, it's echoing back. With the educators being the key deliverer, they're studying, they're becoming qualified teachers. An exciting part of that is that we have a group doing the advanced diploma in education support, which is the beginning of a Bachelor of Education. So we have a group who are on their way to being qualified. They're doing research. They presented their research to the Chief Executive last year, talking about early childhood provision in homelands and a FAFT program, a Families as First Teachers program for Homelands. So you have some of those educators here today, and again, I really encourage you to go and introduce yourself to learn more about their journey. Yirrkala Homelands also have Learning on Country. Like I said, fantastic program. The other exciting thing they're doing is focusing on succession planning. They have a group of graduates, so students that have studied in Homelands, now on their teaching pathway. Those young paddlers are being supported with their study. So it's really exciting stuff. So now I'm going to talk about how the four come together. And hopefully up on the screens you'll see this image. Now I know you won't be able to read it, but you can have a look at this later. About 2 years ago, we brought all those principals together and we started building a network. We talked about what is it that we have to do for our kids in our region to ensure they have the best quality pathway. You can see in the diagram that the student is in the centre. No one school owns that student. So a student growing up in the Gove Peninsula may actually access a pathway that touches all four schools. We talked about each school has strengths. Yirrkala School has great strength in the arts, multimedia, learning on country. Yirrkala Homelands likewise, learning on country, the opportunity to learn in a homeland setting. Nhulunbuy High has formal training opportunities, marine trade training, hospitality, business. So together, a student in this region should not be limited by their options. We need to work together. And the principals have been fantastic. It's been a big shift and some great stuff is coming out. The education fair is an example of this. So really, as a region, we're moving in the right direction. There's a stronger shift to how do we support our Indigenous students in our mainstream schools, and then this collaboration really sets the scene for where we need to head. So really, that's it from me, a snapshot. I'm going to hand over to Sabina because she'll give you more about Nhulunbuy High and the exciting developments there. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Yeah, so I'm Sabina Smith, Principal at Nhulunbuy High. I've been there for just over 3 years now, but I've been a teacher my entire adult life here in the Territory. So 20 years in Central Australia and about 7 or 8 working in Darwin and working across the entire Territory through distance learning. So had a pretty good opportunity over that time to get a really good understanding of students' needs and what the needs of community is. And when I arrived at Nhulunbuy High School, I certainly didn't expect 3 years ago to be, 3 years later, preparing to open a boarding school for Indigenous kids. That certainly wasn't on my radar. The closure or the mothballing of the refinery was certainly a catalyst for change. But in reality, there had been that demographic shift that Heidi talked about, had been slowly occurring fairly consistently for at least 10 years. If I look at the enrolment patterns, for instance, at Nhulunbuy High School, we were a bit of an anomaly 15 years ago. There were probably less than 3% Indigenous students enrolled. There's now currently about 37%, and I expect that next year, as our students' families choose to enrol through the boarding school to attend Nhulunbuy High, I expect to see that percentage jump again. So Heidi's right. It meant a massive change for us in the community, and it was a change that came out of a lot of grieving and a lot of loss for the families and the township itself. But as is the way in life and death, those challenges provided real amazing opportunities, and it became very evident to me and to my principal colleagues and our agency that there was a fabulous opportunity, particularly as it coincided with the release of the Indigenous Education Review, to really do something that was less reactive, if you like, and less subject to the whims of different political ebbs and flows, and return, if you like, to what the Arnhem region know and do so well, which is listen to its traditional people and learn through them about what we need. So this was a message that came through loud and clear when we started seriously questioning who we were as a high school and what we needed to be in the future. And it was the message that came through from our parents, and it came through from our staff, but it most forcefully came through from our students themselves, most of whom were probably born in Nhulunbuy. They told us very, very clearly what kind of a school they wanted, and the area that we needed to deliver better on was around valuing our local culture, our Yulngu families and their knowledge, and really working to embed that across everything that we say and that we do. Now, that meant change in all of us, and I knew that needed to start with me as an individual, and in that process model what that would be for potentially everybody else who was part of our school and the hub that Heidi has talked about. And that's really been, from my perspective, very egocentric as it is, that's been the genesis of the changes at Nhulunbuy High School. In a concrete way, it's taken the form of a much higher prominence of our social and emotional wellbeing program that all of our students in years 7 to 10 do. And we've just completed a 6 or 7 week program that was designed by our local Yolngu community-based organisations in collaboration with our teachers and our students. And it culminated in a ceremony of, in the opening, if you like, of 3 very small but very important culturally located learning shelters that our students participated in the design of, learning about the materials and gathering those materials and the building of those, and learning much of the stories and the knowledge that grounds that way of learning. And it touches into what Heidi talked about. We're not formally part of the Learning on Country. In the future that might change, but we see the value of Learning on Country for all of our students and all of our community, and we've worked very hard with our partners, both locally and further afield with our vocational training, to ensure that there is an alignment of both in terms of the content, our way of designing and delivering the learning, but also importantly the pathways. And that's being shown in our social and emotional wellbeing at the moment with our kids. So we're really thrilled with that. We had some great coverage in the local media, and it was a very exciting time for all of our communities. I guess the other major initiative is the boarding school, and I don't know how much I need to talk about that, to be frank. We're on a time frame to open up a 40-bed facility for day one next year. There are some photos showing the building to date, and necessarily that's where the focus has been up until now, on through consultation with the community about the design of that facility. But sitting behind the building, as exciting as that is, I understand that it's what goes on in that space that is the critical thing. It's the approach to working with families throughout the East Arnhem and possibly beyond region of the Territory, for those families who are part of a group of families. I think there are over 1,000 students, Indigenous students from the Territory that attend boarding. I was staggered by that number when I learned that. Working with those families to understand how a boarding facility in the township of Nhulunbuy, in the context of if you like, this conceptual model where the 4 schools are working together to support the full range of learning needs and wellbeing needs of the full gamut of students. That's the biggest challenge, and that's the one that requires the greatest change for individuals in some cases, and learning. And I guess you could say Nhulunbuy High School 3 years ago reflected a pretty standard, what I think is a standard traditional high school. And I think if you walked into that school today and reflected on the demographic of the staff and certainly the students, and you looked at the kinds of partnerships that we've got, and you look at the programs that we have operating, and the way in which our kids learn together and learn alongside the staff, then I'm pretty confident people would be amazed. I think it's unique, and I think it's very, very exciting. And I acknowledge it's happening in a context that for many people it raises challenges and questions about whether the policy is right or wrong. At this point, we're very confident and optimistic that we can provide a really strong, high quality, culturally relevant program for those families who choose that pathway, and support them in that choice so that those students, when they leave us and transition into whether it's further education, whether it's training through the vocational programs that we've able to offer, or whether it's returning into their community, into employment and into their families, those are the students that are going to be the leaders of the Territory in the next 15 years. And that's where my optimism and my passion, if you like, has its point of vision placed, is that where are those students going to be, and what is it that they're going to be able to contribute in that community, whether it's here in Nhulunbuy or out at Yirrkala on a Homeland, or whether it's international stages. I have the confidence in this community and with the staff and within our own school and our collaboration with the way we've moved forward in the last couple of years, if we can sustain that with the support of the broader community, I'm very excited, and I hope that that's the feeling that for those of you that are visiting from interstate, as you wander around today and observe the fair, the education fair, and our students interacting with your students and families, and over the next 3 days, I hope that's what you see and you go away thinking that there is a fabulous future for the youth of the Northern Territory, and in particular our Indigenous youth. So I think I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Sabina. Thanks, Heidi. I should just welcome Duarua Marika, who's come and joined us here, a very senior elder from the Ridijingal clan. Duarua. And we might get back to the boarding school after lunch for a bit more discussion, but thanks for that, Sabina. It's an important issue that we'll keep working on. Next contributions from Nathan Jura, who's a Wangari man with a very proud lineage through his father and his father's father. He's currently working in transitional education. Not a bad footballer in his day as well, for those who follow the AFL. He's had a terrific education experience. Please welcome Nathan.
Hi everyone, my name's Nathan Jura. I'm a Wangari man. I am from Yirrkala, which is just down the road. I work for the Transition Support Unit, which is a implementation come out of the Indigenous Education Strategy. So I'm here today just to tell you a little bit about my story and how I got to where I am. So as I said, I grew up out of Yirrkala. I went to school. I've done all my primary in Nhulunbuy, and then went to Darwin, went to Camilla College, done years 8, 9 and 10 there, and then after that I got a scholarship down to Scotch College, and out of Scotch College I was lucky enough to get drafted into AFL. So I done 4 years at Geelong Footy Club, and then I got traded to Western Bulldogs. So yeah, it's pretty much a snapshot of my life and how I got to where I am now. Thank you.
Don't worry about the trade, bros. I got cut from the list. I didn't get that opportunity. Thanks, Nathan. Next contributions from Kate Axton. Kate's currently the Northern Territory's Young Indigenous Teacher of the Year, and she's also been acknowledged as a Young Person of the Year. And let's welcome her.
Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you to the traditional owners of this beautiful country for allowing us all to visit here. I want to first pay my respects to the elders, both past and present, of this land. Thank you for your contribution to our culture up here and across Australia. I'm an Arnhem woman from Central Australia. I grew up in Alice Springs. I was born in Canberra, which is where my dad's family is from. My dad is not Indigenous, but my mum is. And moving to Alice Springs was a decision that my dad made because he wanted his children to grow up surrounded by our culture. I grew up in Alice Springs and went to local public schools there and public high school before moving to Adelaide and going to boarding school for year 11 and 12. I think that was something that later on, when I asked my mum why she sent us there and spent all this money on me and both my brothers going to boarding school, she explained that she went to boarding school growing up. She went to the local Aboriginal boarding school in Alice Springs, and she wanted us to experience living and going to school outside of our home communities. And I think a part of that, although we were quite independent before we went, helped us to grow more in independence. After finishing school, I moved back to Alice Springs. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I did know that I didn't want to sit behind a desk, and I knew that I wanted to work with kids. And so it was through a role as a youth worker that I started working with about 8 local Indigenous kids that I would pick up from town camps and houses within Alice Springs and take them to basketball. And it was through discussions with those kids about their education journey and what they're doing, and the fact that they loved going to school and they would come and tell me about what they wrote about was kind of the turning point in my decision as to what I wanted to do. So from there I enrolled at the Institute of Career Education and did my teaching degree. I've been teaching now this is my 3rd year, at the only public middle school in Alice Springs. We cater for kids year 7 to year 9, and we have a very huge Indigenous population at our school, and we also deal with a number of children that are within the cycle of generational poverty and generational disadvantage. So I found that being a primary teacher, being primary trained myself, working in the middle school would, I think, allow me to have more influence on the kids in Alice Springs and their paths in life. I reflect on my own journey through school, and the teachers that I loved and got along really well with are those teachers that were willing to take the time to actually build relationships with the students. So it was a two-way street. We got to know them and they got to know us, and it was through that I kind of, when I finished my degree, I went, right, this is the teacher I want to be. I don't want to get up there and go, this is what you need to learn, and go 100 miles an hour at that. My kids, I do call them all my kids. The ones that I teach, even my 7-year-old refers to them as my kids when we're talking about my work. So my kids, they all know my situation. They know, for instance, that I'm up here doing this because I'm very open with them about myself and what it is. And I find that quite often in return, they're very open with me, and we get a lot of work done. We achieve quite a fair bit. I'm working with students that come to me at the start of year 7 that are comprehending at a year 3 level. And I've got this curriculum that I need to teach them, and I've got marks in which they need to meet as well. So every child that I deal with, I make sure that I make things achievable for them. It's not a whole class thing, it's each individual child. And we take steps slowly and at their pace, and we see improvement. I have been fortunate enough to travel around and see a few things and go to a few different places. Last year I went to South Africa for 6 weeks to volunteer. That was over the 4-week school break plus 1 week on either end. And I think it's important for myself to do things like that, to gain insight from other cultures around Australia, around the world, to see what things I can take and build my practice and make me the best that I can be for my students. Going to all different places kind of opens up my view, which I'm happy to share with the students that I teach. And I hope that through doing that kind of thing, I can have them look up to me and go, that's cool, I want to do something like that. I want to go away, I don't want to just stay here. I want to go and learn and come back and bring that back and share it with my people. I was quite surprised to win the 2 awards that I won at the start of the year, as I feel I just do what it is that I need to do. So it was really nice to be recognised for my passion and what I do. I think, hang on, I'll have a look at the cheat sheet. I think I've covered everything I wanted to. Yeah, that's about it. I think just one last thing, and I think up here, I'd really like to learn more about how education works and is a two-way street up here in Arnhem. It's really something that I'm very interested in, because I really do believe that it is extremely important that being in Australia, all Indigenous kids are working, and understanding the westernised education system. However, it is just as important for our Indigenous kids to carry on our culture and continue to learn the traditional ways and share that with their families. So that's something I'm really interested in to learn more about, and also something that I'm very passionate about. Thank you very much.